I'm Mark Duffy. I'm here from Redcliffe, a part of the Lewin clan. You're all in our little land here. That's our farm. Some people wanted to buy a few things, but I don't have nobody here from the farm to be able to sell you. Sorry about that. A lot of things here are given to our community, to our elders. It's a way that they can buy farm boxes. So if somebody puts in a little bit of cash, they get a box every week of different things that come out of our farm. Back when I was 8 tall or so, this is privately owned, and we used to come up here and pick apples. So it's a terminology around here where you went to a farm and you grabbed a couple apples. You know, the farmer probably didn't like it, but they tolerated it. You know, they were all local people. Then we come up here and pick apples for the farmer themselves at different times. Now this is enhanced into a tribally owned property, and we have a small orchard here that has a few pear trees and quite a few apple trees on it. Back up in the woods, we have mushroom collections going on up in the woods here, which I see everybody's all don't be telling my secrets. We used to have deer harvest here, but now that the clinic's here, it's kind of gone downhill on that for safety reasons and so forth. The farm is doing a fantastic job with our clay soils we have up here. So it's really hard to grow things, and we're up in the north, so we don't have as much summertime as everybody else, so we got to be really careful on what we try to grow and when we grow it. They created these hoop houses here, and that really enhances our ability to grow something much larger scale. One of my favorite things that come out of here is the strawberries. Can't beat strawberries from Bayfield, from the Bayfield area. The older varieties are much better than the new ones. The old ones were smaller and they're much sweeter, things like that. Wild strawberries are the best, but it takes a long time to make enough to make a strawberry shortcake. But it is possible. When I grew up, we grew up, as a crow flies, maybe 3/4 of a mile to a half mile this way on a little bitty plot of land, 4 acres. Everybody in this area basically grows up poor. You're never going to be financially rich here, but you're going to be very wealthy in the technology of the Mother Earth and what she has to offer in the spirit land, in the community that you live in. So everybody around here back in the day knew everybody. You knew who all lived in each house. You knew who was babysitting where. You knew who had this or that, so you could do some trading and stuff of that nature. And a lot of stuff back then was trade. It wasn't for sale. It was trade, or you knew somebody who had a need and you gave it to them as a need. So it was one of those circle things. I do a good deed today, good deed comes returned later on. Today, because we're so apt to be able to travel and do all this other stuff, and we don't rely on the natural resources as much as we used to, now it's more of a bartering purchase concept, because it costs money to go out there and get that sap and boil it down with that firewood. That you had to go use a chainsaw to burn gas, and you had a truck and blah 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 blah, and have to buy all this equipment to do that. I grew up being exposed to some of that, and later in life I took a lot of it on and started doing it myself. I'll give an example there. My dad used to talk about wild rice and harvesting of wild rice. He is passed now, Joe Duffy. He was an excellent wild rice harvester. They looked forward to having him go over to Bad River when it was allowed for Redcliffe and Bad River to go over in there, because he was one of the fortunate few that had a boat with a motor on it. So he would go over there, and all the people with their canoes would be waiting for him, and as soon as he would start his old motor up, they'd all be asking for a ride. So he'd have this big string of line going out the back of his thing, and everybody could hang on to that rope, anybody ever wanted to. Hanging a rope. He said, I've had as high as 15 canoes behind me on my little motor going down the Bad River down to the sloughs to go wild racing. He says, and the same thing coming back up. You know, they'd all do that. And it was one of those things where he never charged, but he was gifted things back. So maybe one day he got an extra couple pounds of rice from somebody. Maybe they got him some sugar from maple syruping, and you know, it wasn't fish because he was a commercial fisherman, so he didn't really need that eventually. But things like that were traded off. Favors. Maybe he got a nice refreshing drink sometime when they met him someplace. So with that aspect, you know, that's the community that we have. So not only are we doing with our own little community, but we were very welcome to any outsiders that come in also. And as people who live buy the land, on the land, in small communities. We rely on what's here. And we're seasonal harvesters. This is our homeland, although in history tells us that we traveled here to there and wherever things are. We went down to the ricing fields and camped there. We went to the hunting grounds and camped there. We went to wherever this was more prominent, where the best walleye fishing grounds were. So we traveled around. Today we got nice new cars, or not new, but nice cars. So instead of having to go camp someplace for a week or 2 weeks and doing whatever there, we do day trips or 2 day trips, or maybe spend a weekend down there and do that. So later in life, after a time, my dad talked about wild racing when he was young. Later in life, I had an opportunity to start wild racing myself. So I went out and I gave it a try. And I found out that, yeah, I really enjoy this. So I've been doing it for a while now. I dragged my dad in on it as a teacher and showed me what he does, because he was good. He had the double tap swish method, I call it. So he'd pull rice in, tap, tap, swish. Bring that in, tap, tap, swish. And amazing how much of his rice fell into the canoe. It was just amazing. He was, like I said, very good at it. So as a young man, being able to bring my father back to his childhood, what he was doing, and create that circle full again, that was a lot of pride on me. Oh, a second now, I gotta catch my thoughts again, otherwise I'll start crying. So we got to do that. And then I'm going to talk about my dad a little more, because back before our treaty rights were reaffirmed, my dad was one of those people that what people would call as a provider. So when people needed stuff, he would go get stuff. In the state's eyes, he was probably called a poacher. If he got caught doing the stuff he was doing, providing for our community, he would have went to jail. So he'd go out there when somebody needed some meat, he'd go get a deer. When somebody needed some fish, he'd go get some fish. You know, they call it night fishing back then, because you go out there and you look around, make sure nobody's around, take your little paddle boat, go out, take a little 100-foot to 300-foot net, set it along the shoreline. Normally in them days they tied it off to a tree or a rock on shore, and then they'd come back and look in the morning before it became truly daylight. So it was dark when they set it. They came back early morning before it became daylight and get their net and get their fish and harvest and bring it, sneak it back home right away before they got told on or caught or whatever. They tied it to shore in case the weather was bad. If the weather got bad or the wind was wrong, they could always grab their net from shore and pull it in by hand from shore. It's a lot more work. You don't want to do it, but you can. Or if somebody's, strange cars here, I can't take my boat out there and I really don't know who that is, I'll go sneak through the woods, grab my stuff and walk it out through the woods. A lot more work, but it was done that way because of the threat of going to jail and confiscation of their gear. And if they did get caught, they went to jail. Pretty simple. And then nobody was providing something for that family. But always somebody on the outside of the reservation, you know, some other uncle or cousins or something. When somebody went to jail because they went out and got a deer when people were hungry, they would step up and they would come and bring something for them. Those days, a lot of people had, if they had a freezer, it was about this big. So it wasn't like you could take a whole deer, all right, num num num, and then cut it all up and keep it, and you got everything. So they'd share it. So come in, so I got a little freezer. I'm cutting this deer up in all little chunks. Here's the hind quarter, here's the front shoulder, here's the neck, here's whatever. And old people, elders back then, they preferred cuts that people don't necessarily care today for. Prime cut for my dad, neck roast. You know, people don't even talk about that today. The way he cooked it, slow and long, fantastic. Some of the best deer meat I've ever eaten. I can't do it. Mine don't turn out as good. I don't have the patience or something, because he would just do it, and just all the love I guess he put into that neck roast and his desires came out of that great stuff. So we lived off deer meat, we lived off fish. And at that time, you know, he was doing it under the cover of darkness. We have our rights reaffirmed now within the state of Wisconsin, a little bit in Minnesota, and recognized in Michigan. So we can go do this stuff during the day. Everything's on a quota basis nowadays. Everything's by biological stuff. That's the way it goes. Back in the day, we did the same thing. You know, if there was a depletion of something, the community came down on anybody that tried to get something like that. I told them, no, Gawain, no beaver this year, you know, the population is low. And then community would police that to make sure nothing was harvested and things. Now we have law enforcement, and of course in law enforcement, I took a career of law enforcement instead of commercial fishing because my dad was a commercial fisherman, and I seen how hard he had to work. Yes, he had money, but he had to pay a lot out, and he worked extremely hard. I took up the conservation side of things and became a game warden because I get a guaranteed check every 2 weeks, and I don't work as hard. So that's pretty good. With that, you know, my mom also was a very big harvester, and we're known for going out and getting big bags of asparagus during the season. And then we'd be out there doing this, and we'd compete with somebody that's here. But yeah, we'd go around and do that. We picked mushrooms. We picked about 5 or 6 varieties, although there's many that you can eat. And Alex could probably tell you a lot more about the mushroom concepts. We had our 5 or 6 varieties that we picked because they were the ones that the family liked. I personally don't like mushrooms for the most part. There's a few that I do, like now the chicken of the woods and puffballs and stuff like that. We do oyster mushrooms. They're really good. I mean, but oyster mushrooms are probably my favorite, and I don't like mushrooms, so they're really good. Found on a dead popple tree standing. Got to have a little bug in them, otherwise they're no good. Things of that nature. You learn these little tricks that you need to find, you know. If it doesn't have this little beetle that's got a couple little things on it, that's not the right ones to have. It's got to be within that cluster. There's got to be a beetle or 2 in there. And we picked safe ones, I call them. So we knew what they were. We knew what we were looking for. Over the decades of harvest, you know, certain places you go back to because they will produce at the same places over and over and over and over. So there's no secrets are shared amongst family and close friends, and that's it. And then every once in a while you bring something new in and show them where it's at. Or we trade a secret, you know. You show me where the morels are, I'm going to show you where the oyster mushrooms are. You show me where the false morels are, I'll show you where I collect puffballs. And then I'll come back to you because I got a puffball this big, come out of the farm. You know, things of that nature. With wild rice, you know, I go through the process now. We go out and I teach wild rice to the youth here and to the families. We have anywhere from 1 to probably 6 events on the reservation here. We just got done with a reseeding event on Friday. Friday we went out and reseeded one of our Raspberry River campground area there and reseeded that. When we reseed that rice on the reservation, it's never for the intention of having enough rice on our reservations to meet the needs of our tribal membership. We just don't have that water body that's conducive to that. We have enough rice here to have sustain a small harvest and also feed our brothers and sisters, the ducks, muskrats, beavers, and so forth that are out there that are all clanly related into us. So we're feeding wildlife, which is our cousins in the long sense of matter of our theories. And then plus it's just something that gives you that great spirit to know that you have wild rice on your reservation. Okay. And for fishing, our main problem around here we have 2 sides of fishing. We have the home use, which is going on right now. And then we have the commercial side of it, which that's where these fish you're going to eat today, whitefish. Some of the best fish in the world is our whitefish here. Fresh whitefish, fantastic. Our home use fishermen are fishing right now. We fish normally for home use right next to the reservation boundaries. And you're fishing between 100 and maybe 300, 400 foot of net. The majority of fish are caught really shallow, like 8 feet or less. So, you know, old school stuff, your net was almost like on the shore, out of water, and out. Nowadays, again, it's work. People doesn't realize the work that goes in it, so they get exposed to it, and then they have to get their nets the same thing. They're working during daylight, but it's evening, you put it out there, and you gotta get them in the morning before the sun gets up, because now if your fish are dead, they'll start to get soft as that sun beats down on them too long. So to get out there and to get them right away, you set them back in daylight, not dark, and they pick them up at first light and do that. A normal home use fishing concept is they go out there and they set their net, let's say it's a 100-foot net or 200-foot net. They set it, a really good lift might be 10 or 15 fish. The average lift, 1 to 5, that's the average. So you go out there and you do all this work and you come in with 2 fish. That's a good day, not bad. You got a meal for a bigger family, or maybe 2 meals for 2 or 3 years. Average fish size about 20 inches or so. You get some big ones, of course, bragging rights, things of that nature. And but it becomes work, and people don't necessarily want to put that work forth. So we only have about 5 or 6 families that are literally consistently home use fishing. Now in Redcliffe we're trying some new tactics. We're teaching it again. So it goes to that circle again. We're coming back for here. People are so-called experts, at least they've been doing it for a while, and they know enough to how to do it and watch the weather and so forth. You got to talk about that, the safety protocol and so forth. It's really kind of iffy when you start talking about people in old school bringing out a canoe and going and setting a net. You have to have good balance. Now we use 14-foot boats and motors and so forth, but we still do the teaching with the canoes and such. And then they go out there and they brag, oh geez, I caught 15 fish the other day. And then you get 2 or 3 people to go with you, brag it up, and you go out there and you look and you catch 1 fish and 2 suckers. Oh, what happened to my bragging rates of 15? Well, it wasn't the day. It wasn't meant to be. Everything is a circle of life. So I'm kind of jumping all over, so just the way it goes. So we always offer a little bit when we ask for something, and that's what we're doing. We're asking for a gift. So when we go out, we ask Sema and put it down on the ground, make good thoughts, good prayers, and offer it up to the spirits. The spirit of what? The spirit of whatever you're trying to ask for. It might be the spirit of the deer. It might be the spirit of a beaver. It might be the spirit of the apples you're picking. It might be the mushrooms. It might be just to make yourself happy for the day. You're offering up this thing to just be thankful that you're here and you're able to do these things. And so you're offering for yourself what you're going to get and the gift that you're going to give. So not only do you get something, but you give something. And something could be the meal that you're going to receive today. Could be the thought that the camaraderie that you had when you went out there and part of the family was there, or a friend was there, and just that socialization and joshing amongst the other. It could be just your feeling that you feel for being alive today. Just that simple. So you always offer a little bit, thankful that you're here. Keep all the spirits happy, keep that cycle rolling. So we all, 7 generations and beyond, that's what you want to do. You don't want to break that circle, you want to keep it rolling along. Back in the days, we used to have hazelnuts around here. I don't know if anybody knows what hazelnut is.
We still have
Couple.
them. They're so good.
The hazelnuts, fantastic. Picky little buggers though. In old time, listening to the elders, the true elders, like my dad and so forth, they used to go pick those by the gunny sack full. And they had 2 methods of storing them. One is they left them in a gunny sack and hung them up in the rafters in the shed. The other method is they put them in paper bags and put them up on a top shelf in the shed someplace. Someplace that kept them out of the sunlight, kept them dry. And then they would eat them as a treat for around Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year's. They'd have that style. I have never been able to really store them very long, because the dang little chipmunks like them better than I do apparently. Because if I put a bag up there, I end up with a few, and they all are empty. But the stories are there that it can be done. I know they had some down at the event yesterday. Showed them there. We get real good about it. You travel just an hour away, and you get the cluster of hazelnuts, which is a burr nut. They don't have pickies on them. Taste the same. Fantastic. They're generally the Brule area and stuff like that. We have a couple trees around here, but they're secrets. So only those people that know about them, because there's only a few of them Um, we did a lot of asparagus, we did some mushrooms, we did a lot of fish. Deer is our meat supply for the most part. We do have a few people that hunt bear around here. It's not a real common species that people hunt because it is our brother bear, and only certain clans that really hunt them, and not a lot of it. We have a lot of bear, but not a lot of harvest of the bear. We used to eat muskrat. I've tried it. It's okay, I'll call it. I don't have seconds. Beaver, I put that in the same category. It's okay. I don't need seconds. One of the strange things that I ate was raccoon. You know, again, I didn't like that one at all. Those kind of things are kind of dying off. Not a lot of people have them. They're more of acquired taste, a little more things. And when you start doing your wild edibles, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find that this is really good. And as Alex would say, you can eat this. And usually if he says, you can eat this, it's acquired taste. You know? It's like, okay, there's no seconds for sure. And I will go help you, but for right now, all the stuff we harvest on that particular issue, I'll give them to you. Around here, you know, as kids growing up, we ran everywhere. And we just did everything. We're expected home for supper for sure. Not necessarily lunch, yes or no, it all depends. Back in the days, it was wherever you were because of how connected we were and families and stuff. If it was lunchtime and you were at Aunt Susie's house, Aunt Susie probably fed you. If you were playing with your cousin Gerald and he got called in for lunch, you got called in for lunch. So it was one of those community, everybody fed everybody, it just the way it was. You know, a lot of things that you eat when you're poor get spread out really good. A lot of soups, a lot of hot dishes with macaroni and rice and so forth. And it's easy to stretch that out to feed many people. And then when we grew up like kids, we ate tucks, which is thimbleberry shoots that are real small. Peel the inner part of that. So we ate the tucks when they were small, and we ate the thimbleberries when they were big. We had all the different berries around here that you could eat, you know, choke cherries, pin cherries, plums of different nature. And then we had the generic term. You know, I grew up, it was called snakeberry. But what was a snakeberry? Anything you were told that you weren't supposed to eat, that's a snakeberry. So if you didn't know how to eat the Juneberry or this berry or that berry, to you that was a snakeberry. You weren't supposed to eat that until somebody showed it and they, you know, here, you eat some of these. I've been eating them. I know, I'm not eating those. And tomorrow morning while I'm still around, I guess I'll try them now. You know, that's basically, you think about it, that's how somebody had to do it in the first place. You know, that trial and error. Somebody had to take down, ooh, that's bad, or, oh my God, did I get sick after eating those? One of the things when you're doing mushrooms is you never mix your mushrooms, I've been told. So I've always kept that thing. I pick this variety, they go in that section. I'm going to pick this variety, they go over here. I'll put them in the same container. Because if you make a mistake, you're going to get sick. Things of that nature. And then always leave a little. So you offer in the beginning, and you leave a little. So you don't take the last morel mushroom. You know, you leave a little there. So things like that. And then this time of year, you know, we're on the tail end of apples, pears, plums are pretty much over. We're into that stuff. We knew where all the rhubarb was, where the best Juneberries were, where you get the most choke cherries, what tree had what style of plums, who had sweet pears and who didn't. You know, because some of them pears just, I don't care if it get a frost on them or not, they just never sweeten up. But where the best apples were, transparent apples were the first apples that become ripe. And we knew where all those trees were when we were kids. So we did that circle of grazing, I'll call it. As things came up, we went out there and got a little of this, a little of that. And harvested the stuff that was there, you know. Even as kids fishing at the old dock, we created little fires once we were allowed to have a fire. And we cooked fish on a stick that we caught, you know. It was delicious, especially the worst fish. The rock bass were my favorite. Little bass that would be, just like they say, amongst the rocks and stuff, and they were my favorite fish. We would cook corn when corn came up, you know. We were just like the raccoons. Once we knew the corn was ripe, we got a few years too, you know. That's the way it went. We smoke fish for longevity. I now take and do maple sapping. I used to, as a kid, went out with Sammy Nawago, the Nawago sugar bush, which is our longevity sugar bush on our reservation. It's been going for probably over 100 years or something like that. It's been a long time. Back before there was really good roads, or even a road. And back then they used to camp out there and do all the stuff, and they'd make it down to syrup and sugar, a lot of sugar. Because sugar was easy. And when we made sugar, it wasn't the powdered sugar that you're doing here today that we do. You can. It was usually cakes, because the cakes were easier to store and they were easier to use, and it was less work, and they created the same thing. It was a cake versus the next step up is sugar. I don't remember making a lot of the candies as a kid, but now they make the little suckers and all this other stuff. I do have people that do that, and I've tried it myself, and it's like, I like the sugar, I like the cakes, and I like the syrup. I don't care for the candy. It's just not my cup of tea. But I teach that now in the concept of, back when we did it with the Nawagos, they would tap 100, 200, 300 trees. I teach now tap 1, 2, 6, 12, whatever it is. I started off with 11 taps, because that's what I bought at a garage sale. So I did it when I was a kid. One garage sale, I bought 11 taps. And from the 11 taps, I started tapping trees and went through that. And I made 2 to 5 gallons of sap with 11 taps. You learn when you only have 11, you pick the best. The best tree, the most exposure, the best crown on it, and so forth like that. You learn to truly get a sugar maple versus a soft maple, hard maple, soft maple. They both produce, but the sugar maple, the hard maple, produces a little bit more, which is a little bit sweeter. So you get to take less to boil it down. I teach now to tap one tree and drink it. Nature's Kool-Aid. There you go. It's got a sweet taste to it. When we were kids, we'd break a little branch and just take the juice out of the little branch and stuff like that. Things you did and things I remember doing, and try to show that to the youth of today. You know, we take the ECC, which is little kids out there, and we, on a good day when it's sunshine and it starts dripping out, all of them get to hug a tree first. You know, got to get your offering up, and you got to hug the tree, because you're going to offer something there, and kids love hugging a tree. And then when the sap starts pouring out, you know, all of them get their little finger and taste it. Great things. It's something that they get exposed to today, and at some time in life, hopefully, they think back and take that up.